Once a black sheep, always a black sheep, Mom declared. I tore up their resort tickets and took my friend instead. After seeing our photos, she left me 23 text messages. I stood frozen, staring at the envelope in my hand. My first real paycheck, numbers I'd never seen associated with my name before. The weight of possibility pressed against my fingertips. My throat tightened. After everything, the rehab, the skepticism, the disappointed glances, I'd done it. I'd finally done it. I ran my fingers over the company logo embossed in the corner, evidence that someone believed in me enough to invest in my future. Unlike my parents, who'd only ever invested in cataloging my failures. The idea hit me suddenly, a grand gesture, a way to show them I'd changed, to make them proud, finally proud. My hand trembled as I booked the resort, a 4-day getaway at Sunset Shores, the kind of place they'd always dreamed of but could never justify, the kind of place successful children took their parents. I pictured my mother's face when I'd present the tickets, the way her perpetual frown might soften into something like admiration, maybe even love. I reserved a table at their favorite restaurant, the place they'd only gone for special anniversaries or when relatives visited from out of town, not the kind of place they'd expect their problem child to afford. My chest fluttered with nervous anticipation. This was it, the moment everything would change. I arrived early, checked my appearance in the bathroom mirror a dozen times, straightened my tie, smoothed my hair, practiced my smile until it felt almost natural. They arrived exactly 7 minutes late, Dad checking his watch as if already calculating how soon they could leave. Mom's lips pursed tightly, her default expression when dealing with me. Alex! My father's acknowledgement, not hello, not nice to see you, just my name, a statement of fact. My mother leaned in for our customary cheek touch. Not quite a kiss. The scent of her perfume, the same she'd worn since I was a child, wrapped around me like a familiar straitjacket. This is unexpected. She settled into her chair, eyes darting around the restaurant as if searching for the punchline to a joke. I'd rehearsed this moment for days, but now, with them sitting across from me, all my careful words evaporated. I wanted to celebrate. My voice sounded smaller than I'd planned. I got the job. My father raised an eyebrow, his disbelief palpable. The marketing position, he clarified. The one you interviewed for last month. I nodded, reaching for my water glass to quiet the tremor in my hands. Well, he exchanged a look with my mother I couldn't quite interpret. That's surprising. Not congratulations, not well done, just surprising, as if my success was a statistical anomaly rather than an achievement. I pressed on. I got my first paycheck today. My mother's expression shifted subtly, interest flickering behind her careful composure. Oh, she took a delicate sip of water. And you haven't spent it all already on your usual habits. The weight of her implication crushed against my chest. 2 years sober meant nothing in their eyes. I would always be the addict, the disappointment, the black sheep. I'm clean, Mom, 2 years now. The rehearsed smile felt like a grimace. That's partly why I wanted to celebrate with you both, to show you. Alex. My father cut in, his voice dropping to that familiar, patronizing tone. Let's be realistic. We've been down this road before, the job, the promises, the new leaf speeches. My carefully constructed fantasy cracked, hairline fractures spreading across its surface. It's different this time. The desperation in my voice disgusted me. I've been working the program. I have a sponsor. I haven't. How much? My mother interrupted, placing her napkin precisely in her lap. What? The paycheck, she clarified. How much was it? Of course, not how was the job, not what were my responsibilities, just the dollar amount, the only measure of worth they understood. I told them, watched as their eyebrows raised in synchronized surprise. Well, my father cleared his throat. That would just about cover what we spent on your last rehab stint. The air vanished from my lungs. Is that what this dinner was to them, a collection notice? Your father's right, my mother nodded. Do you know what we could have done with that money, the trips we could have taken? Instead, we spent it trying to fix you. Fix me, like I was a broken appliance, a malfunctioning machine that had failed to perform as expected. I didn't ask you here to talk about rehab. My voice steadied, finding unexpected strength in the rubble of my shattered hopes. No, then why the fancy dinner? To flaunt that you're finally doing what normal people do? Working, supporting yourself. My father's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. My mother touched his arm, warning him about the public display rather than the cruelty of his words. I looked at them, really looked. The people who had given me life but never figured out how to give me love without conditions attached. Once a black sheep, always a black sheep, my mother sighed, shaking her head. We just hope this job sticks longer than the others. My hand tightened around the envelope in my pocket. The resort tickets suddenly burning against my thigh, the grand gesture now seeming pathetically naive. I need to use the restroom. I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over my water glass. In the sanctuary of the bathroom stall, I pulled out the envelope. The glossy brochure for Sunset Shores, mockingly beautiful. 4 days of luxury I'd intended as a peace offering, a bridge back to their approval. But some bridges can't be rebuilt. Some relationships can't be repaired simply because one side refuses to acknowledge the damage they've caused. I stared at my reflection, eyes clear after 2 years of sobriety, shoulders straighter, the shadow of the person I'd been still visible but fatting with each passing day. Why was I still seeking validation from people who had decided who I was years ago, who refused to see any version of me beyond their carefully curated disappointment? I tore the envelope in half, then quarters, then eighths, watched the pieces flutter into the trash like confetti for a celebration that would never happen. When I returned to the table, I wore a different kind of smile, not the eager-to-please grin I'd practiced, but something calmer, resolved. I've got an early morning tomorrow. I placed money on the table for my untouched meal. Thank you for coming. My mother blinked, confused by this unexpected departure from our usual script of me begging for approval and them withholding it. But we haven't even ordered yet, she protested. I've lost my appetite. I met my father's gaze directly, and I've already heard everything I needed to hear. I walked out of the restaurant with my back straight, each step carrying me further from the fantasy I'd clung to for too long. The night air felt cleansing, possibility stretching before me like an uncharted landscape. I pulled out my phone and called Susie, not my sister by blood but by choice, the person who had actually been there during the darkest days of recovery. They were terrible, weren't they? She answered without preamble, knowing exactly why I was calling. Worse than I expected. My voice cracked slightly. And I expected pretty bad. Come over, I'll make hot chocolate with the little marshmallows. Just like she had after my first week of sobriety when the shaking wouldn't stop, when I thought I couldn't make it through another night. I have a better idea. I stared up at the stars, barely visible through the city lights. How do you feel about a beach vacation? Sunset Shores was everything the brochure promised. Pristine beaches, crystal clear waters, staff who smiled like they actually meant it. I still can't believe you brought me instead of your parents. Susie stretched out on the lounger beside me, her dark curls gleaming in the sunshine. I took a sip of my ridiculously elaborate tropical drink, complete with paper umbrella and fruit garnish. Best decision I've made in years. And it was true, 3 days into our vacation, and I hadn't thought about my parents' disappointment once. Well, almost once. You're different here, she observed, pushing her sunglasses up to study my face. More, you. I considered this. The tension that usually lived between my shoulder blades had disappeared. The constant need to check my phone in case they needed me, in case something went wrong, in case this was the time they finally noticed I'd changed, had faded. I think I'm just remembering who I was before I became their disappointment. Susie reached over and squeezed my hand, understanding without needing me to explain further. We spent 4 days without obligations or expectations, swimming in water so clear you could see your shadow on the sandy bottom, eating meals without calculating the emotional cost of each bite, laughing without waiting for the other shoe to drop. I took photos, dozens of them, not to prove anything to anyone else but to remind myself that joy was possible, that I was allowed to experience it without guilt. Susie insisted on a ridiculous number of selfies, us with cocktails, us building sandcastles like overgrown children, us with snorkeling masks pushing up our hair at impossible angles. For the memories, she insisted after each snap. On our last night, we splurged on the resort's fanciest restaurant, white tablecloths, candles, a violin quartet playing softly in the corner. We look like we belong here, I marveled, taking in our sun-kissed skin and relaxed smiles. We do belong here, Susie raised her wine glass, to belonging wherever we damn well please. I clinked my glass against hers, to choosing our own family. We flew home the next day, carrying the peace of the ocean inside us like a talisman. Life resumed its normal rhythms, work, meetings, the daily routines that anchored my sobriety, but something fundamental had shifted during those 4 days. A realization that I didn't need to keep throwing myself against the closed door of my parents' approval. 2 weeks after our return, my phone exploded with notifications while I was in a meeting. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from my mother. My heart hammered against my ribs, the old panic rushing back. Had something happened? Was someone hurt? I stepped into the hallway to listen to her voicemail. Alexander James Mitchell. My full name, never a good sign. How dare you? How dare you flaunt your vacation all over the internet without so much as a word to your father and me, after everything we've done for you? My confusion must have shown on my face because a passing colleague asked if I was okay. I nodded absently, scrolling through the text messages, each one more vitriolic than the last. Accusations, guilt trips, demands for explanations. It wasn't until the final message that I understood. Susie sent us the photos. How could you afford Sunset Shores? Are you dealing again? After everything we've sacrificed to get you clean. The photos, of course. Susie had tagged me in her social media posts. My mother, ever vigilant for evidence of my failures, must have seen them. The happy moments captured and shared with innocent intent, now weaponized against me. My phone buzzed again, my mother calling. Again, I should have sent it to voicemail, should have given myself time to prepare, but old habits die hard. Hello, finally, her voice sharp enough to cut. Explain yourself now. Explain what exactly? I kept my voice level, professional colleagues still passing by. Don't play dumb, the resort, the fancy dinners, the excessive spending. Where did that money come from? The implication hung between us, heavy and familiar. In her mind, there was only one way I could access that kind of luxury. The old way, the destructive way. From my job, Mom, the one I told you about at dinner. Don't lie to me, no entry-level position pays enough for that kind of extravagance. I closed my eyes, counted to 3, opened them. I'm good at what I do. The position came with a signing bonus because they wanted me specifically, because I have skills and talent. The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably long. You mean to tell me? Her voice had changed, softened into something almost sweet. A tone I'd heard her use with others, but rarely with me. You actually make that kind of money now? And there it was, the shift, from accusation to interest, from disappointment to calculation. Yes, well, why didn't you say so at dinner? Your father and I had no idea. This changes everything. Did it? Did money really change who I was in their eyes? The realization settled like lead in my stomach. You know, your father and I never got a proper anniversary trip this year, with helping you get back on your feet and all. The emotional whiplash left me dizzy. From accusing me of dealing drugs to hinting at financial expectations in the space of a single phone call. I'm at work, Mom, I need to go. Wait, we should have dinner again, a proper family dinner, now that we understand your situation better. My situation, my wallet, she meant. I'll think about it. I wouldn't. Your father and I deserve to be pampered a little, don't you think, after everything we've been through with you? Each word chipped away at something inside me. The last fragile hope that they might someday see me, really see me, beyond what I could give them. Goodbye, Mom. I ended the call, stood motionless in the hallway as colleagues streamed past, the weight of 2 decades of conditional love pressing against my chest. My phone buzzed again, a text from Susie. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't think when I tagged you in those photos. Your mom just went off in my comments. Are you okay? I wasn't, but I would be. I walked back into my office, closed the door, sat down at my desk with its framed certificate marking 1 year of sobriety, then 2 years. The photo of Susie and me at the beach, ridiculous grins plastered across our faces. With methodical precision, I blocked my mother's number, then my father's, then their email addresses, one by one severing the digital tethers that had kept me bound to their expectations. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting or ceremony, just the quiet click of digital disconnection, a boundary finally established. My phone rang, Susie. Are you mad at me? I'm so sorry about the photos. I'm not mad, and surprisingly I wasn't. It was actually clarifying. What do you mean? I stared out my office window at the city below, people rushing from one place to another, lives intersecting briefly before continuing on their separate paths. They only valued me when they thought I had money to give them. The truth of it settled into my bones, not a fresh wound, but the acknowledgement of an old one. They never actually saw me. Susie's breath caught. God, Alex, I'm so sorry. Don't be, it's freeing in a way. I don't have to wonder anymore if I'm doing enough, being enough. I know now that I never will be in their eyes. You're enough for me, her voice fierce with loyalty. More than enough. The tightness in my chest loosened slightly. I blocked them. The words hung in the air between us. All contact. Good. No hesitation, no questioning my decision, just support. Come over tonight, we can look at those ridiculous vacation photos and order too much takeout. I'll bring ice cream and tissues if you need them. I smiled despite the ache. Chocolate chip cookie dough? Is there any other kind worth eating? After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office, feeling the enormity of what I'd just done. Cut off my parents, the people who should have been my first protectors, my most reliable supporters. But they never had been those things, and pretending otherwise hadn't served either of us. My computer dinged with an incoming email, work continuing despite my personal revelations, life moving forward regardless of what I left behind. I opened the file, focused on the task at hand, one moment followed by another, building a future based not on approval I would never receive but on the steady foundation of my own worth. Later that night, Susie and I scrolled through vacation photos, ice cream melting slightly in our bowls. You look happy here. She pointed to a sunset shot of me gazing out at the ocean, profile gilded in golden light. I studied the image, the relaxed set of my shoulders, the slight smile playing at the corners of my mouth. I am, even after today. I considered the question carefully. The hurt was still there, the grief for the relationship I'd never had and never would. But alongside it, something else had taken root, something that felt suspiciously like freedom. Yes, even after today. She leaned her head against my shoulder, comfortable silence stretching between us. They might try to contact you again, she warned eventually, when they realize you're serious about cutting them off. Probably, I nodded, already anticipating the flying monkeys, the family friends who would call to tell me how devastated my parents were, the guilt trips delivered through third parties. But I don't have to answer. No, she agreed. You don't. We finished our ice cream, ordered pizza when we got hungry again, laughed at bad reality TV until our sides hurt. Normal things, healing things. As Susie was gathering her things to leave, she paused at the door. I'm proud of you, you know, her voice soft but certain. Not because of your job or your paycheck or any of that, just for who you are, for how far you've come. The words settled inside me like a balm, not erasing the hurt but soothing its edges. Thanks, my throat tight with emotion. That means more than you know. After she left, I stood alone in my apartment. The space that had once felt like a consolation prize, not as nice as what I could have had without my problems, my mother had once commented, now felt like exactly where I belonged. I picked up the framed photo of Susie and me at the beach, our faces sun-kissed and laughing, the ocean stretching endlessly behind us. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who stand by you when you're at your worst, who celebrate with you when you're at your best, who see your flaws and love you not despite them but with them, integrated into the complex tapestry that makes you wholly yourself. I placed the photo back on the shelf, a reminder of what real love looks like, unconditional, supportive, free from manipulation or tallied debts. My phone remained silent, no desperate calls from blocked numbers, no emergencies requiring my immediate attention, just peaceful quiet. Outside my window, the city lights glittered against the night sky. Millions of individual stories unfolding simultaneously, some intertwined, some parallel, some destined never to intersect. I thought about all the others out there like me, struggling under the weight of expectations they could never meet, trying to earn love that should have been freely given. To all of them, to you, if you're one of them, I wish the courage to draw your boundaries, to recognize your worth independent of others' assessment, to find the people who see you clearly and love you completely. The road isn't easy, the grief doesn't disappear overnight, but on the other side waits a kind of peace I never thought possible. A life built on my terms, filled with people who value me for exactly who I am. I climbed into bed, set my alarm for work tomorrow, another day of moving forward, of building something new from the ashes of what had burned away. And for the first time in memory, I fell asleep without wondering if I'd ever be enough. Because I finally understood the truth. I already was, I always had been, and no one else's opinion could change that fundamental fact, not even theirs.